Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we start, I would like to draw your attention to my weekly email newsletter, Friday Focus. Each Friday, I focus on one topic with one action arising. The link to sign up is in the show notes, or head over to amyrowlandson.com and sign up right now. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Diane Andrew. Hello, Diane. How are you?
Hi there. I'm really good. Thank you.
Well, we were brought together by the lovely Maria Guimarães. I think you mentioned that you listened to her episode and you reached out after that.
Yes. Well, myself and Maria trained NLP together and stayed very close friends after that. So, yeah, she messaged me to say she'd been on your podcast. So I listened and thought it was amazing, and then listened to a few more of your episodes and just loved the message that you put out. So, yeah, I got in touch.
Well, let's just dive straight in. What is it that you're looking to share? What messages that you want to put out into the world?
Well, I work with women in life and business to empower them to know that they can do anything that they put their mind to, because we as women go through so many changes in life. Some of them we choose and some of them we don't. But what happens is we get all these things thrown at us. And alongside that, so we can be going through relationship breaks-up, ill health. We can be looking after elderly relatives, parenthood, so many different things. And along with that, we are running our own businesses, holding down full-time jobs. And you can feel like you're spinning plates or juggling sometimes, and it can be very difficult to do everything at the same time and navigate all these changes we go through. So what I have been through quite a lot myself, and through that journey, I came into coaching, and my message is to share with other women that you have this deep inner strength that we don't always tap into. We've all got it, and we only ever seem to tap into it when we're in crisis point. And I want to share the message that it's there as a resource. You've got it to use all the time, so that when things do go tough in life, when tough things do happen, the fall isn't as hard because you've built that strength and that resilience, and you can get through things. And my journey took me to that point, and I want to share that with other women now, especially women who are running their own businesses as well, because that comes with so many obstacles along the way. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I do.
Well, I definitely identify with the fact that as a woman, we're all juggling, and particularly at this period in life, in midlife, where you're sort of sandwiched between still raising children and then having elderly parents and grandparents even sometimes, but elderly relatives. And we've certainly been through that recently in our family. This deep inner strength that you mentioned, Diane, how has it served you? How has it shown up for you? And where did it perhaps raise its head during a moment of crisis?
Well, I would say I've always been a very positive person. I've always had a very good positive mindset. And then that got challenged along the way. So I was married for 17 years. And within that time, we decided to start a family, which you think is quite a straightforward, easy thing to do until you find that you can't. So we had to embark on the path of IVF, which for anybody out there that's been through that will know it's very stressful, very disappointing when it doesn't work, and it can be very challenging on your relationship as well. So that was a difficult time in itself, and I pulled on my resilience when we went through that. I worked in a 7-figure business It was a family business, and I loved that. I loved the business. I loved the building. I really enjoyed what I did. But then, unfortunately, after 17 years, my marriage ended. It was my choice. And that's one of the messages that I share as well, is that we all have choices in life, and some of them we make ourselves, some of them are taken out of our control, but we can react to how we control to the ones that are out of our control. But in this instance, I made the choice to leave my marriage for lots of different reasons. But even though it was my choice, it was still a very difficult decision to make. I had 3 young children, and I left the marriage. And because of that, I unfortunately lost my job as well, because it was a family company. So I took a year out I moved out the marital home, and I took a year out to kind of get my head together and work out what I wanted to do in life moving forward and how I wanted to move forward, as well as negotiating all the things that get brought up with divorce and a young family as well. So it was quite a difficult time, even though I'd chosen that path. I look back now and I see that I actually was very brave to have taken that choice, because it would have been a lot easier to stay. However, it wouldn't have been the right thing. So I was a year after my divorce, after moving out. And then I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do now? The world's my oyster. I can do anything I want to do work-wise. And I just sort of was just getting into that place of excitement. I wanted to work for myself, wanted to set my own business up. And then, unfortunately, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. So that was a really big blow at the time. In saying that, I still had a choice in how I was going to move forward with that. And I chose to move forward with a positive mindset. And I thought, okay, I've got this. How am I going to deal with it? And I just remember stood looking in the mirror literally I just had the diagnosis with the consultant, and I took myself off into the bathroom, and I just remember stood looking in the bathroom mirror and looking at my reflection, knowing that I'd looked at this reflection that morning, but what I was seeing now was something very different, because the person looking back at me now was someone that had this awful thing growing inside me. And I just remember looking at myself and just pointing at myself in the mirror and just saying, you know what, you can do this, Diane. You can do this. You can kick its ass. And I walked out the bathroom and I thought, right. And I just said to the consultant, look, right, okay, what do we do now? What do we do next? And that's how I chose to move forward through that difficult time. And I firmly believe that my positive mindset was a big part of me, getting through that treatment, and in turn, kicking its ass in the end, because fortunately, a year later, I was in remission, sorry. And then I unfortunately, because of the sort of cancer I then had a 2-year maintenance treatment after that, which meant that I stayed on part of my chemo cocktail, which kept my energy low, it kept my immunity low, so it kept me on a quite low resilience. I'd fortunately met a wonderful new partner, Simon, just before I was diagnosed. So, I had the amazing support of him. I had amazing support of my family and friends, who were just fantastic through it all. So, yeah, I had another couple of years after that where my resilience and everything was low. Kept my positive mindset going. But then I got to a stage again where I was like, right, I'm ready to start work. I'm ready to go out into the world. I'd love to run my own business. And then all of a sudden, all these doubts crept in, low self-confidence, my limiting beliefs. I was thinking to myself, well, you've been out of work for 5 years now. Who's going to employ you if you go for a job? Or, who are you to think you can run your own business? My self-esteem, my confidence, everything was flat. And it was a really difficult time for me then, because I'd always had this positive mindset, and I was in real conflict of all these self-doubts that were dragging me down. And I actually really didn't know what to do and which way to turn at that point. I unfortunately as well, it was like two buses come, you wait for one bus and two come at once because of the radiotherapy I'd had around my pelvic area. It then threw me into early menopause as well. So along with everything else, I had all the wonderful symptoms of menopause as well. So, there was a lot going on around that time. And somebody told me of this motivational speaker who was speaking in London. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go along to that and just sort of see what it's all about. And I went to a 4-day event in London, which was a real life-changing moment for me. I'd been waiting when you get diagnosed with cancer, a lot of people tell you a lot of different stories, and a lot of people were telling me about the light bulb moments they'd had when they'd been diagnosed. And I was thinking, okay, what's going to be my light bulb moment? And I got quite excited, thinking, I wonder what mine will be. And, sort of a few months passed and nothing had happened, and 6 months passed and still no light bulb, and 12 months, still no light bulb. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'm not going to get mine. And then I kind of realized that a lot of the light bulb moments that people had told me about was things like they'd realized they were working too hard and they'd had too much stress at work, or they were in a relationship where they weren't happy. And a lot of the changes they made in life were around those things. And I realized that I'd actually made all those changes. So my light bulb moment wasn't something like that. Mine came from these 4 days, this motivational speaker who, it really switched something in me. For one, the energy that was there, the energy in the room, because I'd been so low on energy, it was like I was feeding off this amazing energy of all these people. And I got chatting to a coach down there. And this coach, we got in a real conversation, and she sort of said, what do you do? And I used to hate saying I don't do anything, because I'd kind of lost my sense of identity as well, because it was like, who was I now? I didn't have a job, and I wasn't a wife anymore. I'm still a mum, but who's Diane? Who am I? And I'd really lost that sense of who I was. And when we were chatting, we chatted for quite a long time. And it was this beautiful soul who actually said to me, you know what, I think you'd be really good as a coach. And I can't be a coach, And anyway, I came away from that event and I thought a little bit more about it. And I just thought, you know what? I would really like to help other women go through all this, that like I've been through, or all different changes that you go through. Because what that 4-day event gave me, I did a lot of soul searching within it, a lot of deep work for myself. And then through talking to that coach, I thought, you know what, I can do this. I can run my business. I can do something for myself. I can go out and I can nail whatever it is that I want to do. I can do this. And that came back in again. And I came away from those 4 days just empowered and ready to take on the world. I felt like I could do anything. So within 3 weeks, I'd signed up to train as an NLP coach, which included timeline therapy and hypnotherapy. And then from that point forward, I've trained in lots of other things and as a coach. And yeah, just through all that, it's working with women as I do now and seeing those moments where somebody will come to me, a client will come to me, and they will be in a place of self-doubt, low confidence, low self-esteem, while wanting to move forward in the business, but these self-sabotage, these thoughts of, oh, how can I get to a next step? How can I be better than I am? I can't do that. And to see those transformations and to see those women move forward. I had a beautiful client last week who had a really rough day at work when she came to see me. And the first thing, she kind of collapsed in the chair and said, oh God, today's just been awful. It's just been, just so difficult. And halfway through the session, she just said to me, she said, I don't know what it is. She said, but, the energy I get from you, she says, I feel like a different I feel like I've just had the most amazing day at work, and I know that I haven't. So to be able to make those sort of transformations for people is just amazing, to see somebody walk through the door one day and then by the end of our sessions walk out and just be transferred and basically go off and do amazing things is just fabulous. I love it. I love what I do.
I can tell it's fantastic, Diane. It really is. I want to just understand a bit more about the positive mindset that you said that you've always had. Can you trace it back, knowing the work of timeline therapy and hypnotherapy? Can you trace that back to moments when you were installing that for yourself, when you were embedding it and believing it?
Yeah, I've always, I had a lovely childhood. There were no problems with my child. My mum and dad are still together now. I've got a brother, and we had a great upbringing. Money was a bit tight sometimes, but I think that probably served me well back then, because I kind of had 3 paper rounds, a Saturday job. I had a good work ethic from being quite young, and I just think I'd always just had an ability to my values have always stayed quite strong. I mean, we all take our values from our parents, from teachers, from mentors, aunts and uncles as we grow up. We're all born a blank canvas. And then, we learn these things as we go along from our peers. And when I reflect back and I look back now, I can see that I was always quite good at looking at what was going on around me and sort of cherry picking what I liked and what I didn't like. So instead of sort of growing up purely with my parents' values, I've grown up and thought, okay, when I have kids, I really liked that, so I'm going to do that with my kids. But you know what? I didn't really, I probably do that differently. So I was always very good at being not being narrow-minded. I've always been quite open-minded. I've always been very good at perspectives as well. When I've had friends going through difficult relationships, instead of just saying to a friend, oh, dumping is no good for you, I'd always sort of chat to them and say, well, what about, have you thought about how he sees that? And, so I've always had my friends many times over the years have sort of said, oh, you'd be an ACE counsellor, you should be a counsellor, and things like that. So I've always had quite a natural way of being able to look at things in a balanced way, I suppose is a good way to put it. And just through that, I think just having my parents around me and just good advice and just people to look up to, I've just kept that positive mindset. If I've always looked on the positive side, so if someone says something negative, I've always sort of contrad that and sort of says, oh, well, if someone's like, oh, they're really moody, I'm like, well, you don't know what's going on in their life, and it could be. So I've always sort of done that. It's just always come as a natural thing, really.
And do you recognize that you understood what values were when you were younger, or do you feel that it's something that you can now look back on and understand that the values were there because you now understand more about personal development?
Yeah, I think when I was sort of younger, I'd say, okay, right, say for instance, when I had my own children, right, when I have my children, I'm going to do that. I think that's lovely, but I'm not going to do that. I'd do that differently. Now, when I reflect back, I can see that's what values were. I didn't know what values were at the time, but now I know that's what they were. And with your emotional blocks and things like that, because it's like climbing a mountain. It's like climbing a mountain, and coaching's like climbing a mountain. You put a rucksack on your back when you're at the bottom of the mountain with loads of stuff in that you don't really need. You might put a bottle of water in, then you put loads of stuff you don't really need in there because you don't really want to leave it behind. And you start walking up this big mountain, and the bag gets heavier and heavier, and you get hotter and hotter, and it gets harder and harder. And then halfway up, you think, you know what, I actually don't really need all this stuff. and you can take the big heavy rucksack off, dump it on the path at the side, and then you feel so much lighter, so much freer, and you can walk up that mountain, fly up there, get to the top and celebrate that you got there. And I think coaching's a little bit like that, with the metaphor of the rucksack being all your emotional baggage, all your limiting beliefs, all your emotional blocks that we hold on to from childhood. And, we carry it on our shoulders through life. And unless you work at releasing those and letting those go, they can keep you weighed down and they can stop you getting to where you want to get to in life. And what I do is I help people to put that rucksack down. I help them to leave their limiting beliefs and their emotional blocks that are stopping them moving forward, so that they can reach the goal of where they want to get to and beyond. For me, it's about, helping women to celebrate their fabulous, because we're all fabulous. Sometimes we just need to believe that little bit more, reaching their higher performance and helping them to shine their light.
I totally agree with what you're saying here, Diane. And what I'm curious about is the journey that you've been on and the journey that you want to continue. There's been a questioning point that you've said, right, what's next? So I'm going to ask you, what's next for you in terms of purpose?
For my purpose, I love doing what I do. I love helping people. I love seeing those breakthroughs. And I'm moving forward now, and I want to help more women in business, especially around, I'm 52 now, especially around my age. I think when women get to this age, they, a lot like mine, I've got my twin boys are 16 now, and my daughter's nearly 19. So they're kind of making their own path. And I have this time now to, sort of really focus on myself and what I want to do. And I think a lot of women get to that point, but they have this mindset of, if you're kind of over 40 or over 45, it's too late to start a business, it's too late to do something for myself. But you have this time now, and a lot of women want to do it, but don't think that they can do it. And I want to help women to say, yes, you can do it. You've got all these years of knowledge and everything, it's in there. Use it. So I love business. I love the business side. And so for me, it's about moving forward and helping women in business achieve what they want to achieve and work on their high performance, work on getting themselves to a place where they want to be.
And it's interesting that you said that these women have got time now, and that it's not too late. And I believe that it's never too late to be who you might have been, but 100%. What's curious, and I think I experienced this as well, is that it was a compromise before. They feel that they had to put life on hold up until this point. And now with hindsight, I realized that I could have done other things if I'd really wanted to, or known about what it was I really wanted, but I just didn't really ask myself those questions. And that I did have that, I'll put things on pause. And yes, my children are very similar age to you. They're 19 and 17. And I do have a huge amount of time. But what strikes me is that you recognized when the children were young, the importance of time for yourself. By making those difficult choices, you still prioritized yourself as well.
Yeah, and that was a very difficult part of my journey, because it's a very difficult one. I've worked with women who have been in a situation of, within divorce, do they stay or do they leave, or, when they've got past divorce stage, or, they're just thinking about it initially. And it is a very, very difficult, delicate stage. At the time, my children were 7, my boys were 7, and my daughter was 9, which is very young. And when I look back now at the photos, it actually, it can make me feel a little bit emotional, because I think, gosh, yeah, they were so small. But I knew that for many reasons, my marriage wasn't right. And the day that I realised that was the day that I realised I spent more of my time being sad than I was happy. And that was a real point for me, because I thought, I've got one life, and I've got one life to live, and do I want to spend it being sad? And then taking the children into consideration. But I thought, what I actually thought to myself was, I thought my daughter, because she was the old one, I thought, when my daughter gets to 18, if I stay in the marriage for the sake of the children, then when Mia's 18, would she turn around and thank me for that? Or would she turn around, because she's seen me unhappy for all that time, say, Mum, why did you stay? You shouldn't have stayed for us. And I thought that, and I thought, actually, no, I'd be doing them a disservice, because I wanted my children to grow up to see what a happy relationship is, and not give them the lesson of this isn't what a relationship should be. So I chose to leave, which was a difficult choice. But then, a few years later, when I'd met my partner now, we always have this sort of jokey thing where, anyone who's listening to this with children knows that, if you show any emotion to your partner in front of the kids, if you have a little cuddle or a little silly kiss or anything, the kids are like, stop it, that's horrible. So we purposely do just to annoy the kids sometimes. And my daughter came in the room to tell me something one day. And as she was leaving the room, we kind of went, oh, she's going now, we can have kissy cuddle time like this. And she turned around, she went, oh, for goodness sake, and walked out. But then she turned around and came back in the room and said, you know what, when I grow up and I have a relationship, I want it to just be like yours. And then she went back out, and I just said to my partner, you know what, if I ever needed any I didn't, but if I ever needed any validation of leaving and showing my kids what a good relationship is, then that was it there. So, it is a difficult choice to make, but, you make it for the right reasons. So, yeah.
Yeah, being a role model in life there's so many different facets to it. And sometimes making a difficult decision, as you did, was the right one because of the decisions that you made, and the commitment that you made to being honest to yourself. And that is, testament to you being true to yourself, because if you're not true to yourself, who are you going to be true to?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think as well that a light was shone on that, if whatever year and a half later, when I was diagnosed with cancer, because that was a scary time. For me, my driving force in that was, I've just got my life back, kind of thing, and I'm not going to give it up yet, so it was a real sort of driving force, but it was a real sort of reminder that we have this one life, and to absolutely make the most of it. So I have friends around me that, when it was coming up to, a couple of years ago, we all had our 50th birthdays, and everyone was like, oh my goodness, I'm 50, and they all dreaded it. And I was celebrating it like anything, like I do. Age has never bothered me, because, again, I think it's that positive mindset of, you know what, we're going to get old. Every year you're going to get old. What's the point in worrying about it? It's something that's going to happen. So, again, it's that whole, external things. You can't control the fact you're going to get aged. It's how you respond to it. So, I've always responded to it with, okay, I'm another year older, and even now more so, because every time I hit a birthday, it's like, yeah, I've lived another year. Let's freaking celebrate it. It's not something to to be sad about. It's something to celebrate. So I do sort of have that different outlook. Well, not completely different, but different to some of the people around me. So yeah, it's I have a reputation of being quite a cheery, smiley person, and I just think it's tapping into that. I'm very attuned with my own energy, and I work a lot on that, and it's something I work with my clients as well, because it's not just about doing some of the basic stuff, it's about doing the inner work, because we have to love ourselves before we can move forward. It's about accepting us for who we are, faults and everything. You know, if I look in the mirror before I leave the house for the day, you know, I look at myself and I'm like, yeah, you look good, you rock it. You know, it's because, you know, it's accepting yourself and how you are, warts and all. Um, I had a client last week, she actually walked in with these amazing boots on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love those boots. And straight away she kind of said, I only got them from so-and-so, they were really cheap. And it was like she was apologizing for the boots. And you know, so that was one of the first things we worked on that day. And I said, you know, it's like if someone says to you, oh, your hair looks nice, how many times do you apologize for it and kind of go, oh, well, I just washed it this morning? Or they say, oh, I love your dress. Oh, we're only a tenner from Matalan, or it's only a tenner in the sale, or whatever. And we tend to apologize when people compliment us. So one thing I work with my clients is, you know, accept those compliments. You know, if someone says your hair look nice, just say, oh yeah, thanks, you know, I really like it at the minute, I love this coat at the moment. And it's just accepting that, and it's a lot harder to do than what you initially think. But yeah, it's all about that self-love and self-acceptance.
It's so true. And practicing saying thank you is a great exercise. and meaning it, you know, just literally, and just leaving it at that. No more. You just say, oh, thank you. Yeah. It is a great exercise. And well, it's not an exercise, it's a life skill. And I just want to go back to the moment when you realized that you were expecting a light bulb moment, but then you realized it wasn't a light bulb moment because you'd already had that you weren't going to have a light bulb moment because you'd already had all of these sort of various decisions that you'd made. Was that not a light bulb moment in itself?
It was, yeah. I have to say, hand on heart, I was really disappointed that I didn't get my light bulb. I was literally like, okay, it's going to come soon. It's going to come soon, and it didn't. And I think it was a while after that I had that realization, and I just thought, right, okay, why did I not get my light bulb moment? And then I thought, right, so what were other people's light bulb moments that spoke to me? And like I say, when I kind of really sat and thought about it, I thought, well, okay, these are all things that I've already addressed in my life. These are things where, you know, obviously I wasn't working at the time, so I wasn't massively overly stressed at work. I didn't not like, because a lot of people don't like the jobs, and you know that those life-changing moments that make them think, I'm not enjoying my job, so I'm going to do something I do enjoy. Or you know, it can be a relationship that's not healthy, or all sorts and everything. And all those things I'd already addressed to get to that point. So, you know, by that point, yeah, that was a light bulb moment. It was kind of like, okay, I'm not going to get that light bulb moment because I've done it already. And so, yeah, that was the light bulb moment, actually. So, yeah, it was quite a moment, that. But yeah, I think my second one was the when I was at the 4 days in London, because that was the shift, that was the big changing point for me. Because I would never, I'd sort of looked into counselling and that, but it just wasn't right for me in lots of different ways. Whereas coaching was the right path for me, because coaching is all about moving forward. It's all about positivity and moving forward, and that sits with me. That is where I sit in life. It's how I work. It just resonates with the inner me, my soul, and how I like to be and how I like to live. So that really was right, okay. When I looked more into it, it was it was where I wanted to be, and I love it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll have another half a century at least going forward with it, Diane. I think because the way that your positivity shines, I'm sure you will live a long and fulfilled life. So tell me, how could people reach out to you? What's the best way for them to connect?
Well, I'm on all social media platforms, well, most. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I've got a website as well. So that's just having a little bit of work on it at the moment, actually. So, but yeah, so all those avenues. I also have a Facebook group as well, Empowering Women Through Life and Business.
Great. Well, put all those links into the show notes so people can just connect easily for you, for them, and for you. And I just want to say thank you. It was great that you reached out to Maria and you've come on the show and sharing your message to help more women in life sort of not live a life of disappointment, but understand that there is way more opportunities out there. So thank you for pioneering your purposeful life. It really is fantastic. Diana, have you got some final words for the audience, please?
Yeah, my final words would be to say that you can do this. Whatever it is that you want to do in life, you can do it. You just find your path, find some help along the way if that's what you need. But if you want to do something, you can do it. Just go for it. Shine your light. Be fabulous. We're all fabulous. Sometimes you just need a little help finding it.
How has this conversation had an impact on you? What value have you received from tuning in? What are your reflections with actions? Please take a moment to leave me an Apple Podcast or Spotify review sharing how Focus on Why has made a difference to you today. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. To keep it going, simply connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, or join the Focus on Why Facebook group. All the links are in the show notes. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.